Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Battle for Azeroth Beta. I thought since I had played Monk a little bit that I would do a state of video. I played Monk quite a bit on live, so I feel I can give an overview commentary kind of on it. So, Monk has probably had the least amount of quote-unquote changes. I've also probably had the best gameplay experience with Monk so far. With my Shaman, I was having trouble staying alive just questing through the zones. With Monk playing as Brewmaster, I didn't seem to have those same problems per se. I did come close to dying a few times. However, I did not, and that's I think I died once or twice. But that is a difference of, with my Shaman, I was trying to pull like 2-3 mobs. With my Monk, I was trying to pull like 5-6. So, and it may have been partially my fault for trying to pull too much. Tanks will be tanks. Yeah. So if we look at the spellbook, so this was one of those classes that I didn't like the changes they made in the pre-patch for Legion. I didn't like the fact, I think that's when they stopped us dual wielding. And I always liked dual wielding because they were the only tank that could dual wield. Otherwise, though, yeah, not a lot of changes. You'll see in the video I made getting the doing the pre-launch event to get the Undercity Plague Bat. I just switched over to it, just kind of spur of the moment, and you know, I think I picked a talent or two that the tier had nothing. The tier hadn't had anything picked yet. It had been reset, and that was it. I think I made a couple tweaks when I went into when I went to Orgrimmar at one point. And that was it. No problem. Everything worked pretty much as I thought it would. So, if we look at the talents, that's what the talents look like. So, as I've been saying, not a big deal. First tier talents are all the same. I started taking Eye of the Tiger just because it gets applied to something else. It does damage and it heals you. So, Chi Burst, it only goes spells that only affect like what's in front of you. It only hurl a torrent of chi energy up to 40 yards forward. It's not an AoE ability, it's just forward. I've tried to take this, I've tried to use it a few different times in a few different expansions, and I just don't. Most things you're doing, unless you're questing, yeah, people are just moving around too much. There's just too much going on for me. Again, it's one of those like coordination things. I'm just not personally. I'm just not coordinated enough to use something like this. I have seen a lot of monks take this, especially as Mistweavers. Chi Wave. Chi Wave was the first, one of the first spells I remember taking. Because I remember at that time, at least for me, the animation of it was unique. Now, not so much. They've kind of tweaked animations and upgraded the graphics and things like that. So it's, yeah. I think this is what I took on my Mistweaver. I'm not sure. It's not the biggest damage dealer. I mean, Chi Burst does more. Chi Wave, though, it flows. It does both damage and healing. And with Monk, that was kind of the original idea, don't forget, was to be kind of a hybrid class. So, yeah, 15-second cooldown versus a 30-second cooldown. So that's the other thing. For tanking, though, Eye of the Tiger works fine. So, yeah. Chi Tornado. Yeah, these are all the same. Tiger's Lust, I just don't really like. I think I've even tried using this in PvP, and I just don't. The 30-second cooldown. You're better. Again, monks were supposed to be more mobile, more versatile. Sorry, demon hunters. So yeah, you're rarely at a disadvantage if you make your own character more mobile in the game, generally speaking, I think. And this works just well. I did not take this when it first became a talent. I think there was another ability that I think did something similar. I think they've merged like two abilities together to get Chi Tornado. Yes, they did. Because Chi Tornado in Mist used to, again, it was like Chi Burst. It used to launch you forward, and it would heal anybody in your path. That's what it did. And I tried taking it, and I just, again, wasn't coordinated enough to use it a lot. A lot of Mistweavers did. It was a really fun spell. I just couldn't, yeah. People moving around and things like that, I just couldn't. And in fact, I remember trying to use it on the dragon boss. No. Where is the... That's different. My mind is blinking. Oh, Shift J. Hello. I remember using it on that boss. Golacaris? Yes. On that fight, I remember trying to use it outside. Yeah. And that was I think that was about it. I think that was like on normal or something. I don't remember doing the rest of the raid. I just remember doing that boss. So. Yeah, anyway, I guess that was a bit of nostalgia for you. Yeah, reduces cooldown of roar. I just never liked this, so Chi Tornado works fine. You use it twice. The nice thing is it stacks. Torpedoes you forward a long distance and increases your movement speed by 30% for 10 seconds, stacking up 2 times. So, that's good enough. Spitfire Tiger Palm has a 25% chance to reset the cooldown on Breath of Fire. So, again, this is a in front of you spell. However, targets affected by Keg Smash will also burn, taking X fire damage and dealing 5% reduced ability. 5% reduced damage to you for 12 seconds. So, one, you're a tank. So, tanking 101 is to have whatever you're, have threats of whatever you're fighting is in front of you. Anyway, the other thing is you're going to be using Cake Smash a lot. You always have. It's part of your rotation for AoE and whatever. However, they have the threat mechanic set up in various expansions. Usually you use an AoE as a tank to make sure you have threats. So yeah, I didn't use this at first for that reason, because it does only focus on those in front of you. However, over time, it's it's something I have come to appreciate. Let me put it that way. So, so obviously, the more times you can use it, even though it does do, I guess it's not a dot. I guess it just says additional damage. Yeah, so you'd want to reset it as soon as possible. Black Ox Brew, again, just not coordinated enough to use things like this. I rarely use my brews, honestly. I'll use Purifying Brew to clear damage just out of habit. Otherwise, yeah. You shouldn't have to be using like Purifying Brew. Or Fortifying Brew, excuse me. That often, if you know what you're doing and you're geared, and your healer knows what they're doing and they're geared. So that's kind of something to keep in mind, is with spells like this, is what exactly are you situationally, how often are you going to be using all these different brews, and instantly refills your energy. Again, though, energy refills quicker, and last I knew, let's see if they've changed it. No, and is increased by your haste. So yeah. Now monks have kind of had a weird history with haste. Even still, I've never found that to be a problem. So, and I have tanked in been a tank in raids with as Brewmaster. I've never had it be an issue per se. It just comes down to really you knowing what you're doing. It's like playing any tank class. As long as you have an idea of what you're doing, both tanking and with your class, and as long as your healers know what they're doing, and as long as you're roughly, if you're doing a raid, as long as you roughly know what you're doing in terms of mechanics, it shouldn't be a big deal. Let me put it that way. Of course, we all know any one of those things, can break down at any time. Yeah. Lightning Brew reduces cooldown of iron skin 3 seconds and increases your maximum number of charges by 1. Yeah, so really any three of these, in any one of these three, I should say, I will learn to talk eventually. It's good depending on what you're doing. So monks are a little bit like druids in that if they're your thing, they never die. More than once I have seen a monk or a druid be the last one standing as a tank, just because they know what they're doing, they're spectrite, they have all the right talents, so yeah, and this is just better overall. You're going to be using this. You want to reset the cooldown, which is a 30-second cooldown. So yeah, has a 25% chance. That's it's worth it. If it was just the breathe fire on targets, it wouldn't be worth it. But with the additional ability of doing additional damage and damage reduction, I feel like it's, yeah. I feel like it's, because 12 seconds is the same length as like a serpent sting. So if this, now that's an interesting, that is an interesting damage done to you. Yeah, so if somebody put a dot on you, that would reduce the damage by 5%, I would think, if I'm reading this correctly. Anyway, we're getting a little too in-depth now. Ring of Peace. This is a weird spell. Just because it has been changed, I think, a couple times. I started using this in PvP. The nice thing about it, just in general, is that, or I should say, that makes it worthwhile in general, is that, one, it's a targeted spell. Normally, I don't like targeted spells because you have to do extra. You have to for me. You have to stop and click it and do everything else. And as a healer or a tank, you want to be focusing on other things. This is really good in PvP. It's a targeted location, and enemies that enter will be ejected. So you can place this around a tank if you're a healer, or I mean, you can see, anybody that's played PvP, you can see the uses for this. Eye of the Storm, I think, is probably the most common one that people use this. They stop the enemy team from running to the flag. This is almost a default choice by monks, I'm noticing. More and more so. Summon Black Ox statue, so this is kind of a throwback to when monks were new. I think I would have pulled it down to 4. Yeah, we don't have one now. It helps with threat. Not really much to say other than that. Yeah. I've rarely. It depends. It's one of those things, again, it depends on, I've seen some monks take this and I've seen some that don't. So kind of your preference. I didn't mind having the Jade Serpent statue for healing. A lot of monks even still take that when it was a talent in Legion. Don't see as many brewmasters taking this. So, and Tiger Tail Swipe. They gave all 3 specs leg sweep, which I'm glad. This is a good decent spell, and being able to take, if I remember correctly, leg sweep and Ring of Peace were on the same tier in Legion, if I'm thinking correctly. At one point they were on the same tier, let me put it that way. So being able to have both is wonderful, is excellent. And this just increases the range of leg sweep by 2 yards and reduces the cooldown by 10 seconds. So I think Ring of Peace is better. Yeah. Bob and Weave increase the duration of stagger by 3 seconds. Why wouldn't you? Healing Elixir's got a nerf. It heals you, but the passive ability was taken away. So I don't think this is all that worthwhile anymore. Healing you for 15% of your maximum health isn't... I don't know. I look at spells like this and I go back and forth. It was a lot better with the passive ability when it had the passive ability. I think all three. I think I took it on all three of my specs. So again, this is kind of one of those spells you just kind of have to see what works for you. I'd rather have Stagger. Stagger works just as it did. More or less before. I think they've changed the percentage around you shrug off attacks, delaying a portion of physical damage based on your agility. Instead, taking it over 10 seconds affects magical attacks at 35% effectiveness. So, yeah. I'd rather have this. I have abilities that interact with Stagger, so yeah, adding a built-in passive so it actually increases the duration over 13 seconds. Yes. And those 30 seconds can make all the difference depending on your situation. So, dampen harm used to be taken by 20 to 50% for 10 seconds, with larger attacks being reduced more often. This used to be better. I can remember using this and you wouldn't take any damage at all. The shield just absorbed it all. And then I don't remember what they did. They changed it. I think either in Warlords or Legion, and it just became less worth taking. I think Bob and Weave's probably the best. I mean, any one of these potentially is good, so I think it just comes down to your choice. I'm saying that more often to myself, which is good. I'm glad you kind of have a little bit. It's not the old talent system, I grant you, but it's at least I think, step in the right direction. So, Rushing Jade Wind. This is probably my minor complaint is they took away. I'm just making sure here. Yeah, they took away Spinning Crane Kick. So normally I may not have taken this, but I wanted another AoE just because you're always keeping this on cooldown. Couple AoEs aren't terrible. Yeah. Otherwise, I probably would have taken Special Delivery. Drinking Refrain Brew has a 100% chance to toss a cake into the air and lands nearby enemies, dealing 590 damage to all enemies within 8 yards and reducing their movement speed by 50%. And then this is just a this is just kind of another Black Ox statue kind of deal. So with I mean, Rushing Jade Wind hasn't changed. It does the same thing it did before. With Special Delivery, 1, it does additional damage, but 2, it makes you, or at least with me, it makes me mindful to use my brews. As I said earlier, I really tend not to use them for whatever reason. Purifying Brew I do because it was just out of habit. Iron Skin Brew was a new addition. A swig of strong brew allows you to stagger subsequently more damage over 7 seconds. So, I mean, it's worth using, but it shares a cooldown, and that's, yeah. Even though it has 3 charges, it shares a cooldown. So this kind of gives you a little more incentive of, oh, I can use this, reduce my damage, and deal more damage. So I felt like, though, just having the one AoE ability for me would frustrate me. So I would say your choice is either Rushing Jade Wind or Special Delivery. I don't know how many people are going to take Invoke Nairuzo, the Black Ox. Summons an effigy, Black Ox for 45-second attacks. Your primary targets and taunted. Subsequently stop damaging all nearby enemies. So I mean, it's you got to be careful with abilities to taunt. I've learned this the hard way. This is kind of a stationary thing. This, is going to be more of like an AoE. It's going to be moving around. I remember this now. Yeah, and you really shouldn't be having that much trouble taunting. It always seems strange to me. They always had these taunt abilities, and you have a taunt, you have provoke, you have Cake Smash. I suppose so. Depending on certain raid fights, I could see this being useful. Overall, though, for general gameplay, I would say either Rushing Jade Wind or Special Delivery. I think is probably your choice there. And then for the last tier, you may have noticed I was so this is what is exciting me the most with BFA is we're getting a lot of these old talents back. We got Guard back. Guard against future attacks, causing the next X damage delayed by stagger to instantly be prevented. So it seems like it's changed from what it was in Miss. I'm trying to remember how. It seems like it had additional charges and a shorter cooldown. Yeah. Seems like it might have used Chi as well. Because I remember going to Timeless Isle and going to kill towards the back of Timeless Isle, there was a pirate ship, and there was a elite pirate there, as well as some just pirate NPCs that were a little tougher to fight. And I remember taking my tanks. I remember doing this with my Death Knight. I remember doing this with my monk. I remember going back there and kind of pulling the whole ship. Yeah. And it seemed like I could use Guard over and over again. It seemed like it was based more on Chi or something, not a cooldown. So again, bit of nostalgia there for you. So yeah, I was excited to see this. High tolerance stagger is 10% more effective at damage. You gain up to 50% haste based on your current level of stagger. This is better. I'm all but convinced this is probably going to be better. Blackout combo was what they had me spec'd as starting. I don't remember if this is what I spec'd into on live or if these have been like changed. Because I think Special Delivery used to be down here, if I remember correctly. If I took this on live, it was because it was the best default choice. It was a passive, and it was the best default choice. I'm really trying to remember. Because I know I've taken high tolerance in the past. I may have been playing around with things. I digress. This is just a lot to remember. And I don't really increases damage, reduces cooldown, reduces domain cooldown, pauses stagger. Other than the last one, none of them really strike me as being all that like, wow, it's better than guard. I guess this is another one of those kind of, pick your preference. I think a lot of people are probably going to pick guard. Stagger's been a decent mechanic. As far as I know, I've rarely heard people complain about it. And people have played monks. I mean, even till now. I mean, I still play my monk, so it wasn't something that people were like, okay, we've had our fun. We're going to go back to something else now. So yeah, I think it just depends on your playstyle. I think I will go out on a limb and say I think this is, just looking at Brewmaster, this is the most variety of spells that I have seen so far. Yeah. So, just kind of depends on your situation and your playstyle, I think. So if we were to go over to Mistweaver. What did I just do? Oh, that's right. Different class. Never mind. Well, that's not going to work inside. I don't even know why it let me summon it inside. So if we look through our spell book, nothing really of noteworthy. We did get Soothing Mist back. That was turned into a passive ability in Warlords. I can't remember if it was for the pre-patch for Legion. Again, as I've said, they seem to continuously, like almost with each patch, seem to need to change something on Monk. And I know we had, what was it, Mistwalk or something like that, which was it was kind of like a blink, but you had to choose a friendly target, you blinked to them, and you healed them. So it was a really cool spell, and it got taken out like after a patch. Trying to, I don't remember. I know this was made a passive in Warlords. I don't remember if it was for the pre-patch for Legion or if that was just Warlords in general. Other than that, nothing really. Yeah. Mastery. The mastery works same way. Nothing too drastic here. Let's look at the talents. That's what the talents look like. I took Mist Wrap because it increases enveloping mist by, yes, okay. Because well, for two reasons. One, I have enough spells down here anyway, so I don't need to take Chi Wave, and a lot of these are AoE, so yeah. And invoke Chi G, the red cream, yeah. This is my big spell. This is my tank healing spell. So getting 1 more second and increasing its healing bonus by 10% seemed worthwhile. This kind of went out by default because it was the passive. Yeah, so any three of these Chi Wave and Chi Burst did not change. So again, did not change. Chi Tornado. Monity. I think this got taken out of the game in Warlords. Again, I'm pretty sure. You don't stack T anymore. They're not the mist abilities that they were. It's just a cooldown now. It works like there's a priest ability that works similar. It makes all spells for healers free. This just makes your spells reduced by 50%. That's what put me in mind of though, and I cannot remember the name of the spell. I tried life cycles. It's again coordination. It doesn't proc anything down here. Last I used it anyway. Really good idea in concept. You use enveloping mist, and it's supposed to reduce the mana cost of your next vivify. Vivify reduces your next mana cost of enveloping mist. So theoretically, your strongest single target and your AoE ability, they're supposed to cycle each other so you can use them over and over. It just didn't. It just didn't. It just didn't work very well for me. I just didn't. You're not using just these two spells. You're spamming Renewing Mist. You're using Smoothing Mist, which I always use, or Soothing Mist, excuse me, to get the instant cast of Enveloping Mist anyway. Yeah, you don't. I didn't use Vivify that much. I always use Essence Font or Chinji. And then we got Renewal, or Revival, excuse me, Revival. That's Rear Weekend. What was I thinking? So yeah, so this is, you do, I am noticing with the stats change from a healing perspective, you may run out of mana. We were running out of mana in Legion in certain raid fights, so I just picked this. Spirit of the Red Crane teaches you Teachings of the Monastery Cause, an additional blackout kick to restore X% mana. So this was a thing, I think a couple times in the game, which was kind of this damage, this melee damage hybrid healing spec. I've rarely, if ever, used damaging abilities as a healer, so this just, for me, this just doesn't even do anything. My choices would be between Mana Tea or Life Cycles. So, if you're a monk that uses damaging abilities, more power to you. Feel free. I'm not saying this is bad. It just, for my playstyle, I would just never take advantage of this. So there's really no point in taking it. Ring of Peace again. As a healer, I would say this is a must-have, because you can place it on your tank, on your DPS. There's so many uses for this. We got Leg Sweep anyway, like I was saying, so Song of Chinji conjures a cloud of hypnotic mist that slowly travels forward. Enemies touched by the mist fall asleep, disorient them for 20 seconds. So, yeah. Well, one, it only travels forward again, so there's that issue. It doesn't say so. Most disorienting effects are interrupted by damage. far as I know, that's the way. I'm pretty sure blind is a disorienting effect on rogue, and it's interrupted by damage, I think. Pretty sure. You're definitely, there's definitely more versatility with Ring of Peace than there is with Song of Chinji. Yeah. And Tiger Tail Sweep, I just don't. When you have Ring of Peace, I just tend to think this is better. Why would you have one kind of AoE stun ability when you could have two AoE abilities that could kind of work together? Yeah. So again, Healing Elixir got nerfed, doesn't work as well. So by default, Dampen Harm on a healer just doesn't even. I've got Life Cocoon, which is vastly cocoon of chi energy for 12 seconds, absorbing X damage and increasing all healing over time. Received by 50%. Yes. So I think most people would argue is a vastly superior spell. So I just took, since most raids and most abilities in PvP that you have to worry about are spells, I just took Diffuse Magic, because not only does it reduce magic damage you take by a percentage, it transfers all currently active harmful magic effects on you back to their original caster if possible. So not a lot of spells to do that in the game, and I kind of like that idea. So, if possible. Invoke Chinji the Red Crane. Summons an effigy of Chinji the Red Crane for 25 seconds. Heals allies with Crane Heal for so much. So yeah, this is, you started seeing this get more play as Legion went on. A lot of people were all what's the word I'm looking for? I guess stuck in nostalgia, and said, oh, you have to take Jade Serpent Statue if you want to be an effective healer in PvP, because I think this was a PvP talent. I take that back. I think it might have been on the regular talents. I digress. And I took this because it's kind of a passive. You choose when to use it, but once you've summoned Chinji, he just runs all over and does whatever. You don't have to worry about it. So you can focus on, now it used to, if I remember correctly, if you targeted someone with a single target heal, it would heal them next, or it prioritized based on missing health or something like that. I seem to remember. Again, it's one of those detail things I'm not sure of. As time went on, as I said in Legion, you started seeing more and more people use this. So, nothing wrong with Jade Serpent. It's just you have to put it down, and it heals the same target you heal, and things like that. It's just a more situational ability. This will run around and heal everybody. So you can get a lot of, if you're throwing essence font out, and they have that dot on them, and then this is healing them, and then you're trying to heal a flag carrier, for using PvP as an example, or if you need to throw down Ring of Peace over a flag or something like that. I mean, this works well. This only works when you do something. This works regardless. Rushing Jade Wind, the only drawback with this is it's a melee ability. It's a close range ability. So if this was pick a target location and put like a tornado there to heal, as Warrior has a couple abilities like that, I would be more tempted to take this. It only swirls around you. As a healer, you don't want to be in close range combat generally. So this is just not that good right now. If you're doing raids or something, this might be better. Of course, not at all saying it's a bad spell. All three of these, again, just kind of pick your preference. You could use Jade Serpent. I'm not gonna say it's it doesn't pull its weight. I just prefer this. So Chinji works fine. And then Thunder Focus Tea. Thunder Focus Tea now empowers your next 2 spells. So Enveloping Mist immediately heals for X amount. Renewing Mist, duration increased by 10 seconds. Vivify has no cost. Rising Sun Kick, cooldown reduced by 9 seconds. So having the 2, I think, is definitely worthwhile, especially with, I think I use this mostly on Vivify in PvP. You get Chinji out, you get the dot from Essence Font, and then you spam Vivify. You're throwing out a lot of healing. Upwelling, for every 6 seconds, Essence Font spends off cooldown. Your next Essence Font may be channeled for 1 additional second. The duration of Essence Fonts heal over time is increased by 4 seconds. So it's not bad. You can still do more with this. If you get Enveloping Mist on 2 targets, you've healed for 10,000. Whereas this heals for not 10,000. Well, maybe. Each bolt heals a target for 600 plus an additional 2. And assuming this scales as you... Not sure how this scales as you scale. It could. I still think this is better. The one thing I have noticed with using this in Legion is that it's an AoE ability, up to 6 targets. You may be in range of someone, this may not reach it for whatever reason, which is kind of weird. I don't know if it's a bug with the spell or if it's just I thought it was going to work and it didn't. I don't know. Yeah, this just has more. Well, especially for Vivify too. You're able to do spells. When in this situation where you have one spell that does one thing that could be potentially good, and I use Essence Font a lot in PvP. for every 6 seconds Essence Font spends off cooldown. That's going to be kind of rare and far between. If that happened, that means I died and I'm running back somewhere. I like the duration. It increases the duration of the heal over time. I just feel like this has more versatility. And you can mix and match. I know I've used Enveloping Mist and then Vivify. So instead of using one spell, then this is on cooldown for 12 seconds, which means for 12 seconds this passive doesn't do anything. This has a 30-second cooldown. However, you've done a lot of burst healing very quickly. Vivify has no mana cost. Enveloping Mists immediately heals for 3,000. So the initial healing is 10 plus, so 16, almost 20, if you were to round everything off, close to 20k if you use this twice. Yeah, Vivify has a 40 range cooldown. Essence Font only has 30. I like the idea of Essence Font. While I'm not, channeled abilities, I kind of go back and forth on depending what it is and what it's doing. I think that's fine. It's worked a little wonky for me a few times, I guess is what I'm trying to say, and so I'm a little cautious of taking something like this. This is what the default was when I switched over. I switched it over to Thunder, Focus Thunder, because I'm pretty sure that's what I had by default on live. That or Thunder Focus T by default empowered your next to receive a gel empower. Yeah. Your next spell. Yeah, so apparently this is what I had on live. And then Rising Mist. Rising Sun Kick heals all enemies with your Renewing Mist. And Enveloping Mist or Essence Font for X amount and extends those effects by 2 seconds. So again, I just don't use DPS build as much, so it's kind of between these two. And yeah. So I know a lot of people don't think much of Essence Font. And I don't know why, because it's a decent spell. It works well. At least in PvP it did. To me, you don't always, just because a spell doesn't have the biggest numbers, doesn't necessarily make it bad. It depends on, that's why they call it a rotation, because you're using a group of spells that have to work together. So that's one of the things I like in the game, is you get to consider, like these things here, you get to consider, well, is this better or is this better? And then you kind of figure it out in your head, and then you I guess you theory craft it, so to speak. And then you kind of make changes, and so there you go. And then let's go to Windwalker. And let's look through. Spellbook here. I don't think very much has changed here. Yeah, we did not get We did not get any of our artifact abilities on Monk for some reason. Not exactly sure why that was. We just didn't. So as far as DPS goes, probably Eye of the Tiger. Why wouldn't we? Chi Tornado. Ascension does the same thing it did before, increases chi, energy, and energy regeneration. Fist of the White Tiger. I was looking at this and I was kind of on the fence with this. Strike with the technique of the White Tiger, dealing X physical damage, generates 3 chi. So it has a 30-second cooldown. However, you don't have a lot of AoE abilities. You have Spinning Crane Kick, and that takes 2 chi. I feel like giving this a chi cost. I don't think it did in this when it first came out. I think for a long time, I think you could just use it. I think it just used energy. I think was one of the. I think it kind of nerfed it a little bit. I don't like this not having a chi cost because you have to start with a single target ability. And if I'm trying to do something, I want to do an AoE, pull a mob, and then, have at it. And when you have a lot of these abilities that use chi, you're kind of prioritizing. I don't use Fist of Fury nearly as much as I should, and it's a really, I think this is probably the hardest hitting ability. Yeah. Because I'm using Rising Sun Kick to reduce the effectiveness of healing, or I'm using Blackout Kick to reduce the cooldown. Now, one of these... Okay, either they've changed this, or one of these used to reduce damage they did. Reduce cooldown. And I thought it was Blackout Kick used to reduce the... no, that was Tiger Palm. Yeah. Tiger Palm on something used to reduce the damage that they did to you. It did low damage itself, but it reduced their damage, so it was worth keeping it. And it was like a buff, so you could see when it was up. Yeah, so there's something interesting. Yeah. So anyway, back to what I was saying. Fist of Fury is a really good spell, and I should be using it more, but with the costing 3 chi, I tend to find that I end up using other abilities first. And that may be me. That may not be necessarily a issue with the spec per se. So yeah. And then Energizing Brew, we've kind of been over this. Refills your energy instantly, grants. I'm just not coordinated enough to use these. So, by default, I would think Ascension, because I believe this does AoE. Yeah, all targets in front of you. Yeah. Can be channeled while moving, though. I mean, this is a decent melee ability. So it's worthwhile. And doing DPS, usually most things are in front of you. I out of habit now, I just back up with Monk. If I'm not sure if it's an AoE ability or if it's just targets in front of me. I try to be more mindful of that. Good karma, touch of karma now, redirects an additional 50%, so probably that. All damage you take is redirected to the enemy target. As nature damage over 6 seconds, damage cannot exceed 100% of your maximum health. So probably that. Ring of Peace for a DPS, this would probably be the only spec of the two that this probably isn't all that good. When I've played this, it's been questing, and you usually don't want to keep enemies away from you. Inner Strength, each 2 you spend reduces damage taken by 2% for 5 seconds, second 5 times. So I think this is a new ability. It doesn't ring a bell, but I think that's probably, yeah. Stacks up 5 times and you have 6 chi, so you can, and this doesn't say it has a cooldown, so you should be able to trigger this. What bit? Hit combo, each successful attack triggers. Yeah, stacks up, so that hasn't changed. That hasn't changed, and that hasn't changed. So I had hit combo. Seemed to work well, and then Serenity, which replaced Storm, Earth, and Fire. I tried Whirling Dragon Punch. I just didn't like it. Are on cooldown. Every 2 chi spent reduces the cooldown. Yeah. So this works fine. Enter an elevated state of mental and physical serenity. While in this state, you deal 20% increased damage and healing, and all chi consumed are free and cool down 100% more quickly. So a little bit of a kind of like a heroism kind of thing. They're more burst damage. That's what I like, is more of a burst style. So, and on live, this was a heavy hitter. This could do a lot of damage. So there you go, folks. Not much difference. Still played exactly the same way you would think it would. So I'm excited. I'm a little disappointed they took away the artifact abilities. Because I think Monk had some of the more kind of what am I trying to say? More versatile, worthwhile. This was just another kind of cake smash. Healing was good, damage was good, Mistweavers was good, Windwalkers was good. I was kind of surprised. I wonder how they decided which ones to take out of the game. Excuse me. Which ones to take out of the game and which ones to make like talents or just baseline or something like that. Anyway, there you go, folks. There's a little overview of Monk in beta. And I hope you enjoyed that, and thank you for watching.